SciManDan. How are we, mucker? Here's my reply to you, to this.
Right here, it's as much about rational thought processes and logic as it is common sense.
There is that phrase again, common sense. He keeps repeating there's no resistance in a vacuum like it's some sort of smoking gun. That's the point. You don't need resistance to change the speed. You need a force. Look, I think I can explain the physics involved here until I'm blue in the face.
There's no point in you explaining your physics, SciManDan, because you're missing the point. You don't get it. There is no resistance in a vacuum. Right? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. This will be my SciManDan Special. 4 different subjects. You think you know it all, but I am going to show you that you don't, right? Now, let's do your rocket in space. And there is no resistance, okay? Now, first of all, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Newton, and that would have been in 1687. Because your Newton is a legend, right? Sir Isaac Newton worked gravitational forces out, 1665, 66, worked colour, the prism out, 1666, the Principia Mathematica, 1687, the laws of motion, the tides, orbits of the planets, the first reflecting telescope, 1668, and optics, 1704. He was a scientist, an astronomer, a mathematician. Far out, he invented his own calculus so that it could be used to understand his stuff. SciManDan, when I say it is about common sense, first of all, you need to understand that I'm wired differently, okay? I see things as they are, and you see things as you are expected to see them, okay? Here's the moon. Daisy the cow. It's actually on the moon, grazing for a change. We have a rocket coming down, 2 rockets, okay? There is no resistance in the vacuum of space. No resistance whatsoever, okay? Now that means that nothing that is up there can interact with the vacuum, okay? Nothing up there can interact with the vacuum. There's no resistance. This rocket's coming down towards the moon. It throws the thrusters on. For some reason, your physics, you reckon that there is going to be some kind of upward force on the rocket, even though it's coming down in a complete vacuum. It cannot interact with the vacuum, okay? There's no resistance to interact with. But because you've heard every action has an equal and opposite reaction, you automatically think that there's going to be an upward force to the downward thrust. When you're in a vacuum, you may as well be in a sealed glass container, because nothing that you do is going to allow you to interact with the medium that you are traveling in. Now, let's ignore this one. This rocket is coming down towards the moon and it's in a sealed glass container. Puts its thrust on. What's going to happen, SciManDan? Is it going to slow down? No, it won't slow down. Why won't it slow down? Because the thrust coming out of the bottom cannot interact with the vacuum of space. This one is in a glass jar as well, just that it's invisible. You don't need it. Because if you understood the properties of a vacuum, no molecules, no atoms, no particles, nothing to work with. So when your thrust is coming out, you think that that is an action, but it's not an action. It's an action, but into the vacuum of space. It's not an action. You cannot have an opposite reaction to an action in a vacuum because it isn't an action. You cannot interact with the vacuum. But there you are, because you're getting a force going down and it's somehow creating a force going up. It doesn't happen because you cannot. It may as well be in a sealed glass container. All the thrust you want can come out the bottom of the rocket, but it's going to dump into the negative pressure of the vacuum. How on earth is it going to create an upward force? Damn. There's no resistance. It's really that simple. Why on earth would Newton in 1687 have worked out 3 laws of motion, one of them, the third, being every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and be referring to rockets travelling in the vacuum of space in 1687. Common sense, right? I'm not sure where to go with this one because I see it as common sense. If you're in a vacuum, it doesn't matter how much thrust you pump out the bottom of a rocket. You are not creating, you're not making any kind of action because it is in a vacuum and there is no resistance. Nothing you do will allow you to interact with the medium that you're traveling in. So you are basically in a glass container. You say, yeah, but you're not interacting with the vacuum when you slow down and an opposite force is created. Of course you are. Of course you are, because you're getting an opposite reaction. But there is no initial action because there is no particles, no atoms, and no molecules. There's nothing to work with. It's empty space. So, yeah, for me, it is about common sense. I don't think there's anything complicated about it at all. But you were told to dump your common sense, weren't you? Let me tell you something about that. The 2 types of people will tell you to dump your common sense, that it's not needed anymore. Somebody who has no common sense, or a liar. Those are the only 2 people who would tell you that you don't need common sense. Can you see why? It doesn't take any thinking at all if you've got any common sense. You're in a vacuum. nothing that you do is going to interact with the medium you're traveling in. So how are you slowing down? You are using the vacuum to slow down. But you're basically in a glass container. This rocket is going to be able to use the medium it's traveling as much as that rocket. And that rocket can use the medium it's traveling as much as that rocket. But somehow, because it's not in a glass container, you think there's going to be an upward force. You're wrong. You're all wrong. Thrust will not work in a vacuum for that reason. Fun times, huh? Now, I've got 3 other things for you. The moon's gravitational pull on the water. I honestly thought when I saw me come up there again with you, I thought this is it, the moon. Because I said the moon does not have anything to do with the tides, right? But it wasn't, it was that one. I mean, they're both, I think the thrust in a vacuum is well easy to work out. You're going to love the moon one. But the moon, it doesn't have anything to do with any of the tides on this planet. Here we go. Is it common sense? Not really common sense, but there's enough reasons that you could nearly class it as common sense, right? Now, first of all, 1687, laws of motion, tides, orbits of planets. So let's have a look, shall we? The SciManDan Special. This is my reply to you saying to me that it's always about common sense. I told you I'm wired differently. I can spot the lies. I'm objective. I'm not biased. I don't take sides either way. What difference does it make to me if they went to the moon or not? Apart from the lies that the children are being lied to, right? Listen, if the adults cannot work it out, what chance have the children got, the next generation coming? Maybe just hear me out, okay? All of you. The moon orbiting us as we are spinning. It's orbiting us in the same direction that we are spinning. We are spinning slightly faster than it, so it has the illusion of it moving from east to west in the sky. If we stopped, we would see that the moon is in fact going from west to east. Again, we are spinning on our axis faster than the moon is orbiting us, so it gives the impression it's moving from east to west in our skies, right? As you know, the moon's trajectory or its path is equatorial, right? If I do that, it's spinning around our equator and it goes up and down because of our tilt on our axis and the slightly elliptical orbit of the moon. It's not in a perfect straight line. So we see it hover quite a fair way away from us, in between north and south of the equator, okay? Everybody following so far? The tides on the planet. First of all, let's have a look at this. Now you have to remember something here. Half of you, I say half of you, the majority, you've had seeds planted, and I am a conspiracy theorist. So straight away, a lot of you've just tuned out. You're not going to listen. You don't care. You don't like me. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm disagreeing with what you believe. Nothing to like. But I am objective. I don't take sides either way. I can hold 2, 3, 4 theories about the same thing in my mind at the same time. And I don't have any conflict in my head because I am objective. If a new fact pops up that changes something I believe in, I will obviously change what I believe in. It's the wise thing to do. I don't have cognitive dissonance. I don't hear something that doesn't agree with something that I believe, and then I get the shits. I have been a round earther all of my life up until quite recently. I'm not saying that I'm a flat earther, but if I had had a load of money betting on the round earther, I would have asked for it back if I could get it back. Because I'm objective enough to change my mind when I need to be. Not like some people. The moon. Earth is 3.66 times the diameter of the moon. The moon is 0.27 of our diameter. Its diameter is just over a quarter of planet Earth's diameter. The moon is at a distance of 30 Earth diameters. 3, 4, 30 Earth diameters away from us. That is 110 moon diameters. This is approximately. We have a diameter, where's that gone, of 12,742, and the moon has a diameter of 4,747, right? 12,742 kilometers. Now, I'll say a little bit of common sense. These two right here are to scale. This is a 8.3 centimeter diameter moon. That is a 30 centimeter diameter planet Earth. Right? They are perfectly to scale with a 12,742 kilometer diameter Earth and a 4,747 kilometer diameter moon. Perfectly to scale. If we had the 384,000 average distance, that's in kilometers, that the moon is from Earth, for these two, it would be 9 meters. This here would be 9 meters away from that 30 centimeter diameter planet Earth. Knowing this, we then come to the ridiculous tidal bulge that defies both logic and common sense. But I am wired differently. Now, y'all believe in the tidal bulge. You probably also believe that Newton, in 1687, when he sorted out the laws of motion, that you think somehow explains thrust in a vacuum, but it doesn't. You think that he worked this tide thing out as well. Now, the bulge, the stupid, ridiculous, common sense defying and logic defying bulge of planet Earth's water because of the moon's gravitational pull. Now, do we know? I'm sure you do, Dan. So we have the front. Let me draw the equator line in, because that's important right now. So we have, you've seen it on there, The moon is equatorial. It orbits us as we are spinning anti-clockwise on our axis. Now, the moon is 30 planet Earths away, that way. It's pulling on the water and it's creating a bulge, right? As Earth spins, it's creating a centrifugal force, right? This centrifugal force, as it spins, right, it's throwing the water off, isn't it, right? So we have the moon over here pulling, creating a bulge, and the bulge being created at the back, it's because of the moon, because it's on this side of Earth, the gravitational pull on that side of Earth is less. Therefore, the rotational turning, spinning of planet Earth as it creates its centrifugal force is throwing the water out the back, creating the second bulge. So we have the bulge at the back, just exaggerating a bit because of the centrifugal force and the moon's gravity being weaker on this side. And on this side, we have just a straight pull from the moon on our water. Now, I'm calling horseradish. I'm not going to say it's common sense, but if you do your own digging, but nobody does, you guys don't. You have your information served to you on a silver platter. Anything else, not interested. You don't do your own research. If you did your own research, people like me wouldn't have to do what we're doing constantly to try and wake you up. First of all, let's have a look at something. We know that the moon orbits us around the equator, right? We're spinning. Where would you expect the bulge, the highest tides? Where would you expect them to be? Obviously, along the equator, right? But they're not. So my question to you, SciManDan, because you're the science man and you know it all, and you put me on the spot once again, even though it is common sense. You cannot interact with the medium you're in when you're in a vacuum. So there's no opposite reaction because there is no initial action to start with. Now, the highest tide on this planet is in the Bay of Fundy, right there. See where it says Halifax? That bay, right there. It's the Bay of Fundy. Highest tides up 60, 70 feet, twice a day, right? Now that is quite a long way away from equator, isn't it? The second highest tide on planet Earth is right there. We have the Bay of Fundy. Not the Bay of Fundy, the Angava Bay in Quebec, right? Right there. The second highest tide. So we have the highest tide and the second highest tide well up in the northern hemisphere. We're going to go to the third highest tide now. And for that, mate, we're going to go to Old Blighty. Now we spin, right? Stay up near the north and we come to the Bristol Channel. Right, UK. Bristol Channel has the third highest of the tides on this planet. Things seem logical to you so far. Bristol Channel, right? Now let's go to the fourth highest tide on this planet. We'll go west again. Right, so again, we've got Bay of Fundy, we've got the, what is it? Oh, I keep forgetting this one. The Avanga Bay, look, it's in Quebec, second highest. The third highest, fourth highest is the Cook Inlet in Alaska, right? The Cook Inlet. It's not written on this globe, but I'm pretty sure the Cook Inlet is in there somewhere, right? It's either that side or that side in there. Those are the four highest tides on the planet. Isn't that strange that they are all up north? But the moon and the bulge that we're supposed to be seeing or experiencing is along the equator. The fifth highest tide on this planet is in a place called Los Gallegos in Argentina. Rio Gallegos, the southernmost tip of Argentina, not too far away from the Antarctic. So, SciManDan, put me on the spot. Explain to me, using logic and common sense, if the moon is orbiting us along the equator and there is a bulge, why is it that the five highest tides, four of them are up north and one of them is down near Antarctica? Any ideas? If there was going to be a tidal bulge, would you not expect the highest of the tides to be along the equatorial line, spinning anti-clockwise? The moon would be following us like that, and there would be a bulge here, and Earth would spin into the bulge. Let's look at the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico in the US, it's a very odd one. The Gulf of Mexico not only has some of the lowest tides ever, even though there's the equator, the bulge, open ocean. They say it's not open ocean. You've got the Florida Straits and then the Cuba something, or the Mexican, what is it? I'm not sure, but this is the Gulf of Mexico. That's the Atlantic Ocean. We are turning into a bulge. There's room for water to slosh in. In the Gulf of Mexico, it has semi-diurnal tides, diurnal tides, and mixed tides. That means just about everywhere on the planet has two tides every day. Every 6 hours and 20 minutes, 5 hours, 5.5 hours. It's a bit of a mix-up, right? In the Gulf of Mexico, not only does it have semi-diurnal and diurnal tides and the mixed tides, Tampa, it's coming up. Check it out. On the 24th of February, The low tide is at 2 in the morning. The low tide is at 0207 a.m. in the morning. The high tide is at 6:30 p.m. the following evening. That's 2 to 2 in the afternoon, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's 12. That is 16 hours and 32 minutes. 16 hours and 32 minutes. 16 hours and 32 minutes after the low tide. It's taking 16 hours. And the low is at 0.02 meters, and when it does eventually get to the high, it's 0.7 meters. It's not even a meter's difference. So using your logic and common sense, explain to me, how on earth is that happening? Now, don't do that, oh, we have centuries of studies and evidence and it's perfectly normal, because it's not perfectly normal. It defies logic and it defies common sense. But you don't do those things. So how do you deal with something like this if you don't have any common sense? What do? How do you question something like this? Not only that, all of that bulge that they're telling you is happening, because they're not telling me, because I don't believe a word of it, because it's ridiculous. All that bulge that's happening on this planet because of the moon's gravitational pull that was worked out in 1687 by Newton, why don't any of the other bodies of water on this planet shift even a millimeter? Why is that? You have all of the lakes in the US, Canada, the 5 Great Lakes in America, in the US. You combine all of the water in those 5 lakes, the Caspian Sea has 3.5 times as much water as all of those lakes combined, right? The Caspian Sea, 3.5 times as much water as all of the great American lakes combined. But it doesn't move an inch. There is no tidal change. Black Sea, all of the seas, all of the lakes in the US. How is that possible? It defies logic and it defies common sense. So how do you deal with something like that? You were told to dump the common sense. Science doesn't care about it. So what do? How do you question that? Do you just think it's normal? Something else. One of my own personal observations, SciManDan. I do a fair bit of fishing, and I fished in Florida as well. Now, where can I draw this? Let's go down here. Definite SciManDan Special tonight. Right. My own personal observations, right? Like something I brought up just the other night, because I think about these things. What I do is I process the information myself. I find things out using some of my own personal observations, and then I come to a conclusion. Out here, could be 30 miles out, so forget this top bit. We'll get to the absolute light radiating from the sun in a minute. 30 miles out. Right? Let's say there's, 50 feet of water. Right? God, this chalk, that's better. 50 feet of water. In your tinny, in the boat. Right? Couple of you fishing. You've got lines over, and the tide starts. Let's just say it was at the bottom of the tide. All of a sudden, the current starts coming in this way for 6 hours. So what happens? Everything shifts. The boat starts to go that way. The anchor that you've got down ends up going like this, right? Anchor's down here, the water's pushing you that way, your lines are going that way, you can't fish. It happens for 6 hours, and what happens? It slows down. You're in no man's land for about 20 minutes maybe. The anchor, you could pull the anchor up and it would just drop straight down. The current dies, and then it starts to go the other way. But it drops in the same direction that it came. So all of a sudden, you're getting pushed this way. The anchor goes that way, and the fishing lines go that way. Now, that's illogical. It defies common sense. Right? If you're out fishing and the tide comes in and there is a bulge that planet Earth is moving into, in this situation, when the current is coming in one way, so you're fishing and it's coming in that way, it's coming up and you're going back that way and the anchor's that way, gets to the top of the tide. If it's a bulge, would you not expect it to go behind you and drop the other way? Why is it coming in this way, getting to a high tide, and then flowing back out the same way it came in? Why does it do that? It's highly illogical. It is highly illogical. That is one of my original thoughts, by the way. Because that's how you work things out. So, SciManDan, knowing that the moon is 30 Earth diameters away from us, it is only 0.27 the size of our diameter, is it logical to think that it bulges the water on the planet, but it doesn't move any of the water in any of the massive lakes and the Caspian Sea and things like that? Now, you might say, yeah, it's logical. Why would it move them if it's not connected to the oceans? But it isn't logical, and it does defy common sense. But it really does. So the moon obviously has absolutely nothing to do with the tidal waters on this planet. It can't do. The first one is the other bodies of water. It would shift. It would shift some of that water. Right, let me read to you something from this book. I hope you're enjoying this SciManDan Special. Where's that book gone? Here it is. Now, I know a lot of you are so used to being told what is happening in this world, and you accept it. You don't question anything. Do you even know how to question? Would you even know where to start questioning some of this stuff? No. But I hear anything and I go, how do they know that? How did they work that out? And I'm a conspiracy theorist. You guys are accepting all of this stupid stuff. You don't even know how to question the thrust in a vacuum. There can be no thrust in a vacuum because there is no resistance. You are operating, you may as well be in a glass sealed container because nothing you do can interact with the vacuum. But just because you see the thrust going you automatically think, it's a visual thing, that there's going to be an up force. There's not, because there is no initial action. You cannot interact with a vacuum. There is no resistance. Thrust would not work, does not work. The Secrets of the Oceans, 1980. Just a couple of little things I'm going to read to you. I read this out on one of my posts just the other day. All right? And it is relevant if you, what can I say? If you think for yourself, you'll understand that some of these things are fascinating. Right? So here we are. Let's do this first one because it's just more of the same. So, here we are. Are we ready? The link between sun, moon and tides has therefore been observed for centuries. However, people did not know the reasons for the interaction. The why of it was provided by Isaac Newton in 1687 with his principle of gravitational pull, on which the whole basis of tidal movement rests. Here it is again. According to Newton's scientific finding, every single piece of matter on Earth is attracted by the gravitational pull of the moon. Even the land has tides, but because it is a solid crust on the liquid mantle of the Earth, it moves very slightly. Fluids move so much more that there is a tidal range in any body of liquid, even in a cup of tea or coffee, if you could possibly measure it. Now, did you hear that? Knowing that, is it logical that the moon doesn't shift any of the water in any of the larger of the smaller bodies of water on this planet? When the moon is orbiting. Why? Why does it not? It's creating all these bulges. Fluids are attracted by gravitational pulls so much more, but none of the bodies of water are shifting even an inch. Why is that? Any ideas? And I'm not making it up. Even in a cup of tea or coffee, if you could possibly measure it. Right, now let's go to. Now, there's so much I could read here, but let's get straight to the point, okay? This is still about the tides, right? The moon, the sun. I say, just because of the other bodies of water not shifting even a millimeter, when all of this other stuff is moving, that is enough reason to seriously question all of these claims, right? But then listen to this. When sun and moon pull on the world ocean to create a bulge on either side of the Earth, it is not the bulge that is the tide. This can be proved by checking the time of a particular high tide against the position of the moon. If the bulge were causing the tide, the moon would be directly overhead. But the time difference between the passage of the moon and high water can be anything up to 12 hours and 25 minutes. This is not to say that high water will never occur when the moon is overhead, but only that if it did, it would be purely coincidental. What you have just been told there, if you can process information, is there is no pattern to be found in the moon and the water on this planet. At the bottom there, up to 12 hours and 25 minutes, right? Between the passage of the moon and a high water can be anything up to 12 hours and 25 minutes. This is not to say that high water will never occur when the moon is overhead, but only that if it did, it would be purely coincidental. Now, there's so many things about this that should be ringing alarm bells. What they say is the bulge here creates high tides here, high tides at the back, low tides up there, and low tides up there, down there. But that isn't how it works. I've had Australia up. On Tuesday, I'm doing a follow-up. Where did I go? Cape York, Townsville, Bundaberg, Brisbane, Sydney, Newcastle. I came around to Melbourne, Adelaide, all the way around, Perth, Broome. There's high tides and low tides happening all over the shop, right? We have a low tide in Sydney, and just around the corner in Melbourne, it was high tide. Tasmania, tiny place. 2 high tides, and in between, a low tide. That is not logical, right? And don't say it's the shape of Earth and this, that, and the other, and topography, and because it isn't. Don't forget, none of the other water bodies of water on this planet are having water displaced. The moon doesn't have anything to do with the tidal waters on this planet. To think it does, after hearing these facts, would defy common sense and defy logic. So where are you now on this, right? The moon does not shift any of the water on this planet. Number one, the distance, the size. It is not displacing the smaller bodies of water. The 4 highest tides are all up north. The bulge is equatorial. The Gulf of Mexico has some of the lowest tides on the planet, and it is about there in relation to the equator. All of those things are more than enough reason to understand that there are lies involved. But you need to be able to think for yourselves, which is something you struggle with. Now, where are we going to go from here? Let's check out the Mickey Mouse photons and the light. The light travels at 299,792,458 meters per second, because it is ridiculous. I'm just going to press pause. I'm going to go to the toilet real quick and I will come back. And we are back again. Right, let's have a look at the ridiculousness of the photon. Again, I say common sense, but no. The sun that you're seeing behind the moon is 8 minutes and 20 seconds old. Yada, yada, yada. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It's taking 8 minutes and 20 seconds for your Mickey Mouse photons to arrive here from the sun, right? That's what you think. It's taking 8 minutes and 20 seconds. And you guys think that the sun, that is directly behind the moon is not directly behind the moon, or it's 8 minutes and 20 seconds old. It's an old image of the sun, or something along those lines. And it's not. It's a ridiculous thought. It is a thought with no common sense, no logic, and no rational thought attached to it whatsoever. It takes 8 minutes and 20 seconds for the photons to get here from the sun. Okay, this is what you're told, and this is what you believe. Even though, if that was the case, and it takes 8 minutes and 20 seconds for the photons to get here, this is the sweet spot on planet Earth, the black line, right? So in here, we have the moon shadow, the distance to the sun. I've made it 8 minutes, 18 seconds, 18.7 seconds. To the moon, I always laugh. And then another 1.3 seconds for the shadow to reach Earth from the moon with the Mickey Mouse photon that Einstein called in 1905, even though he would have known that the sun is directly behind the moon during a solar eclipse. If it takes 8 minutes and 20 seconds for those photons to arrive, hit the moon and cast the moon's shadow, that would mean that not planet Earth, that the sweet spot, that black line, it would have been pointing in that direction. 2.08 degrees, that is how far planet Earth spins counterclockwise on its axis in 8 minutes and 20 seconds. So what happens? 3, 2, 1, go. Photons leave the sun. They take 8 minutes and 20 seconds to arrive at the moon. After they leave, don't worry, the Earth is obviously always spinning. So these particular photons, traveling, 8 minutes and 20 seconds, bang, they hit the moon. The people on the sweet spot, bang, they see the sun directly behind the moon as they are stood in the shadow that is being created by the moon blocking the photons that have been traveling for 8 minutes and 20 seconds from there. So why is it that around the moon, people are seeing the sun's corona? Why is that happening? People are trying to tell me that the reason that it's happening is because I'm seeing an 8 minute and 20 second old image of the sun behind the moon. It can't get much more ridiculous than this. If it took 8 minutes and 20 seconds for the shadow to get thrown onto the sweet spot by photons that left the sun 8 minutes and 20 seconds earlier, why on earth are we seeing the image of the sun directly behind the moon as well? It cannot be an old image of the sun because it is directly behind the moon and it is in line with the shadow that is being cast onto the sweet spot. There are 4 things in a surgical straight line: the sun, the moon, its shadow, and the sweet spot on planet Earth. Guys, they're lying to you about your eyesight as well. Optics. Newton. You believe that when you're outside and you're looking at the grass, that the grass that you're looking at has no colour. It's taken 8 minutes and 20 seconds for the photons to get here. They bounce off of the grass at a certain wavelength or whatever, hit the retinas, go to the rods and cones, and you get a printout saying it's green. Wrong. Light is absolute. Where is the logic in me looking at the grass and seeing photons bouncing off of the grass that have taken 8 minutes and 20 seconds to get here from the sun? I look up in the sky, what do I see? What is that I'm looking at? Which sun? Is it an old image? What is it? It cannot be an old image, because if I get this stick and I put it up against the sun, 3 things will be in line: the sun, stick, and the shadow that it casts. It's unfortunately about common sense. The stick is not blocking any photons. The stick is blocking the absolute light source itself. That is why it is in line with the stick and the shadow. It is basic common sense. But you guys, you get a degree, you do all of these studies, and then somehow you find an 8 minute and 20 second light delay. I'm looking at things objectively, and I'm looking from the outside in. The amount of explanations that some of you guys come up with, the amount of explanations that I have had given to me, and so many are different. This is what you don't get. You come up with all of this horseradish to justify an 8 minute and 20 second light delay, but they're all different. Now, what does that say? If you all had the same explanation, you could look into it, but you don't. You all have your little takes on what's happening. It's ridiculous, right? There is no light delay coming from the sun. We know this because during solar eclipse, it is bang on. The sun is directly behind the moon. To think it's not, to think there are photons involved, it's just a lack of common sense. Again, SciManDan, if you don't have common sense, you don't know what I'm talking about. These things, right? These things are insane. How on earth? Why on earth would Einstein in 1905, why would he have called photons and this light delay? Had he never seen a solar eclipse? Had he never noticed that the sun is directly behind the moon? During a solar eclipse, it is common sense. Guys, it is common sense. Ask a 5-year-old child during a solar eclipse where the sun is, and he will say, she will say, it's behind the moon. Well done, child. But you go to school and you're taught that there is a delay. The pyramids. I always thought that this one would sort itself out, but you have liars and charlatans coming up with all of this horseradish that people believe, and you believe it because you can't question it. You don't know where to start. I'll show you where you start. Pure common sense. The Egyptians. What is it? Do they not say 25? This is just Giza. 6.5 million tons. 25,000 Egyptians. 25,000 Egyptians. Pyramid Giza on its own has 2,300,000 2.5 ton stones. 25,000 Egyptians are going to move 2,300,000 2.5 ton stones. Those are just the basic building blocks. That works out at 92 2.5 ton stones each. Now, anybody with any common sense that has any idea, just a small amount of knowledge about logistics, would look at that and go, what on earth are you talking about? But no, not here, not on this planet. On this planet, what you do is you get people to major in Egyptology. People, PhDs, qualified personnel, are getting degrees, qualifications, and teaching it to other children. How is it even possible that you have all of these theories for these pyramids, but there isn't even a single explanation, not a single explanation anywhere for how even one single 2.5 ton stone was carved out of any quarry using just copper hand tools? There is no logical answer for the very, very first step that was involved in building the pyramids. But that's overlooked. We don't do that, do we? We don't need to know how 2.3 million blocks weighing 2.5 tons stone, weighing 2.5 tons, blocks of stone, were quarried using just copper hand tools. We overlook that bit, don't we? It's ridiculous. Your intelligence is being insulted over and over and over. And people like me are telling you. But instead of listening, you just bag us. And you guys are getting stupider. They are getting richer. And nothing is changing because of your cognitive dissonance, your attitude towards us, all the seeds you have planted, and the lack of common sense. It's not your fault, which is one of the reasons I keep doing this, because I get that. But there is going to have to come a time, and soon, that you're going to have to start thinking for yourselves instead of this majority garbage, and not thinking and just accepting everything that you're told without questioning. I am telling you, science, magic, common sense is the ability to be able to differentiate between what is real and what isn't. It's also the ability to be able to differentiate between what is possible and what isn't. You guys have lost that ability. So SciManDan, when you say that I keep saying it's common sense, for me it is. None of this stuff is complicated. None of it is complicated because I can think for myself. Thrust in a vacuum. You cannot interact with the vacuum itself. You cannot interact with the medium that you are traveling in. But you see the thrusters come down and you think it's more efficient in a vacuum. But you are in a sealed container. The thrust wouldn't work here because you can see, you visualize the container. That one is also in a container. It may as well be, because nothing that comes out of that rocket is going to interact with the vacuum. There is no action taking place. There cannot be an action taking place in a vacuum. Therefore, there is no equal and opposite reaction, SciManDan. It's a fact. Now I'm going to show you something here. In fact, we're here now. We're here now, aren't we? My entire life, up until 4-5 years ago, some of you have probably heard me say this, I thought the planet was round. I didn't have a reason to think otherwise. right? This, it's called a polar projection, right? It's in the Funk and Wagnall's World Atlas book. I think it's a 1992. It's one of the later ones. Now look. So we have, let's get a shadow. South America, North America, the North Pole, scratch itchy, Africa, Spain, UK, Mediterranean, Australia, New Zealand. Now, there is something very strange happening in the oceans. Now, I'm talking, this is my stuff, not stuff I've learnt from anywhere else. It's stuff that I've come up with myself because of everything that I've been accumulating over the last year, few months. The moon does not have anything to do with the water on this planet. I have given you enough facts, right? It is not moving any of the water in the smaller bodies. We have the 4 highest tides all up on the northern hemisphere. This is called thinking, right? Now, what we have is, where are we? That's it. So we go up, we have the Bay of Fundy, right? In there, we have Ungava Bay. Over here, we have Alaska and the Cook Inlet. And all the way over there, we have the Bristol Channel. All of these things, the highest tides on the planet, are all up here. Why is that when the equator is down here? And why is the other one down here in South America, the 5th highest, Los Gallegos in Argentina? Why is there nothing going on where the bulge is supposed to be? Now, am I wasting my time? Are there people now going, what is he talking about? He's talking rubbish. It wouldn't surprise me, but it isn't rubbish, is it? It isn't rubbish. Just read you one last bit out of this book. I don't care what other people say about anything, because people lie. The world is run by liars and charlatans. They're not telling people the truth because it doesn't suit them. There is something not adding up. Right, here we go. It should be coming up now, I hope. Right, here we go. This is 1980, folks. 1980. The world ocean is constantly on the move and in every direction. Anyone who stands on a beach can see this. Tides ebb and flow. The surface ripples. Waves rush in and break. all is in constant motion. However, these readily observable movements are mere ripples on the surface of the world's oceans compared to the underlying total flow. It is all on the move, steadily and inexorably, in the great worldwide flow of oceanic currents. These currents have been known for a long time. Sailors have used them for centuries to speed their progress across the oceans. Some of these, like the Gulf Stream, are fairly well charted. But whatever is known about them, the mystery of why they flow is not yet known. Bottom, the mystery of why they flow is not yet known. Now, like I said, I don't care what other people say. There is enough information out there on so many of these subjects. But you guys decide you're not interested. You don't even want to listen to an opposing opinion, a theory that doesn't agree with your own. That is a calamity. And it has been taught. We're conspiracy theorists, don't listen. Attack. It's not the way to go. I have been doing this for enough time. It's not about qualifications. The place is being run by liars and charlatans. You're not standing on the shoulders of any giants. That I can guarantee you. Right, let me do something spontaneous. And then we'll wrap it up on my SciManDan Special, who doesn't like it when I keep saying it's about common sense, even though for me it is. I'm wired very differently, SciManDan, aren't I? I see things as they are, not as I'm expected to see them. Right, this hasn't been down for a while. Liars and charlatans. Half of these people didn't even, I say half, could be even more. Newton. Why on earth would Isaac Newton in 1687 come up with the 3 laws of motion? One of them, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, referring to the vacuum of space and space travel. In 1687, let's go at the top. Galileo. Call this Tycho Brahe. Unprecedented astronomical observations in 1577. Johannes Kepler. Planetary motion. Elliptical orbits. It's just a list that has been fed into the mix for this. Why on earth all these people 200 to 300 years before it was needed come up with all of this stuff? Guys, if you cannot see it, Joseph Lagrange, 1736 he was born. In 1772 he came up with the three-body solution, the gravity thing. Now, when has it ever been used? Oh, that's right, the James Webb Space Telescope. Look, you can take a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. You are not standing on the shoulders of any giants. You are being led by liars and charlatans. To know that, you need to be able to think for yourself and actually bring logic and common sense back into the mix. Then you'd understand that no, thrust doesn't work in a vacuum because there is no resistance. And if there is no resistance to work with, you do not get the initial action, because really you may as well be in a sealed container. You cannot interact with the medium that you are in. So no, it cannot work. It's obvious that light is absolute, because for crying out loud, the sun during a solar eclipse is directly behind the moon. Directly behind the moon. Relativity. Olaus Roma, Jupiter, Io. Your first nudge at relativity, they're telling you that it came in 1676 because he reckons he detected some kind of light delay as he was, look, I can't even go into it. I cannot even go into it. But you know what? While we're here, if I can find that 1955 book in less than 10 seconds, let me show you something. This has been planned for a while. Please be the right book. It is. That never usually happens. You did the wrong one. Light. L-I-N, L-I-M, L-I-G, light. Now, this is 1955. 1955. In the 1955 encyclopedia, trust me, it's 1955, okay? In here, let me move you forward a bit. So I'm going to wrap it up. Saturn. Saturn's moons. Old Roma, you see that I'm crouching down a bit, 1644, showed that light does not, I'm having trouble, there we go, does not travel instantaneously. And he made quite a good, estimate at speed by noting discrepancies in the predicted actual times which Saturn's moons (1955). But somebody along the way, somewhere in between 1955 and I don't know, and 1961, because in 1961 it was Jupiter. Decided that Saturn was a little bit too silly. There's also a bit about Fitzo. He used a lamp. Liars and charlatans, not the shoulders of any giants. I do think it is common sense, but the wiring is different. You're being lied to, systematically lied to. All right, and that was it for the SciManDan Special. Have I forgotten anything? Let me think. Probably not. Probably. No, the moon does not have anything to do with the tides on this planet. Something on this planet, if it is a planet, is displacing the water. Why on earth, when you're fishing out in the ocean, the tide come in from one direction, and when it drops back down, it goes back the same way that it came? Why are none of the other bodies of water moving if the moon is doing all of that? It's purely coincidental that the moon is above you when it's a high tide. That tells you right there is no pattern. 16 hours. Check it out. Tampa, 24th of Feb coming up. 24th of Feb, the low is at 0200 and the high is at 6:39 p.m. the next day. 16 hours and 32 minutes in the Gulf of Mexico. Highest tides all up to the north and one down in Argentina. Defies logic and it defies common sense. I'm not expecting any other answers from you, SciManDan, than, yes, but we have studies that go back centuries. So, that's where they have you. All right, folks, buenas noches. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Laters.